if I just mention something around some of the measures that the country, because the issue of the expanding deficit has been in the headlines, but we think the deficit is, if managed well, and some of the measures the government is trying to do around the Treasury single account, the TSA, would ensure managed cash flow management in a way that you can manage the debt demand by the government. On the other hand, we see a lot of debt being taken up by infrastructural development, which in itself is a good thing, and hopefully it can be plowed back to the economy as fast as possible. There are challenges around absorption, but the government needs to think of more collaborative ways to ensure that development expenditure absorption is higher than it has already been. We've had them developing the economic zones along the railway line, and we hope this can be set up in a manner that will attract investors who will come and create jobs in a manner that will be more sustainable. Because if you look at the employment question, last year the government is anticipating to sort of look at 850,000 new jobs created. And out of that, 130,000 are in the formal sector. So we need to have a more meaningful employment, especially in the formal sector, so that they can increase the tax base, they can increase the spending of the population, and as such, move the economy forward.
Now, if you look at tax to GDP, which is how much tax as a percent of GDP it is. You know, if you look at over the last 5 years, it has gradually increased because it in the financial year ending June 2013, the taxes to GDP was 17.3%. Yeah, which basically says that considering our gross income as a country, 17.3 was collected as tax. Now that, in terms of a benchmark, which I've seen the government in its documents, including the budget policy statement and some documents from World Bank, shows that that's good, because for a country like Kenya, they generally say the tax to GDP should be around 17 to 18%. So if you look at then what is it likely to be in this year, June 16, the year ending, financial year ending for the government, their forecast is 18.7%. Yeah, so they're already exceeding the benchmark which has been set. In fact, what they're looking for next year, and that's something I would want to talk to you about, is they're saying they want to increase that to 19%. If you think of it, the government expenditure is no different from you and I. You know, we need money to run our day-to-day things to eat, yeah, clothes to wear, etc. Yeah, so that we call recurrent expenditure. But then we also need money to do new things, or buy a new house, or maybe a new mobile. And I'm seeing some exciting phones here by yourselves. Yeah, all of you seem to have smartphones, and so you set aside what we call development expenditure. Yeah, so if you look at what is that deficit attributed to, now if it was attributable to for the government to fund its recurrent expenditure, that will not be a good idea, because then what you're doing, you're borrowing to consume. But if it is borrowed to fund development expenditure which will benefit generations in the future, then we know that those benefits will come in the future. So therefore, the burden of paying for that should really be in the future, isn't it? What I want to look at is in now total tax revenue. Yeah, something I think statistically we need to look at and say how real are these numbers. So let me share some statistics with you. Financial year 2013, the tax total revenue was 734 billion. Yeah. In financial year 14, it was 897 billion. I know we have some difficulties between million, billion, trillion now, yeah? So when I say 897, I'm talking about million, yeah? Billion. So not million, yeah? There's a lot of zeros behind 897, there are 9 zeros. So that is an increase of 22%. So the government, I think, in the ambition to start setting up a target for tax revenues for year end June 2015, it had come out with a target of $1 trillion. Yeah, 1 trillion, isn't it? The actual performance was 997, which was 11%. Yes? Now, with some of the reforms which have come into VAT and excise, this year they're planning to collect 1.142 trillion. So just look at the numbers I'm speaking, then you can know I'm talking about the billions. 1142 billion, yeah, is the likely collection for this year, which is a 15% increase from last year. So we're now already at high base. And what the government is now setting the target for revenue, which is a key source to fund our expenditure in the country, for year ended June 17, which is this year, and she was making a budget statement about, his ambition is that we will collect as from us as taxpayers 1.332 billion, yeah, 1.3 trillion. Now that is a 17% increase from last year, and last year's base is quite high.